wet.
I know. I know.
Warm and dry.
I agree. I totally agree. It can't come fast enough.
No.
It really can't.
I agree. And March is a killer.
We got to add inspiration field as a discussion item, but I'll make a motion to add it. Yeah, they call inspiration field. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to add it to the agenda. Yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna ask to add it now. Yeah. So. First discussion item.
And that was shared by a lot of people. All right, thanks. We'll take Thursday. All right. Take Thursday.
By the way,
How we doing? I'm doing great. How's everything? I know. Yeah. They are in your house.
I need time for that as well.
Yeah, let's do that again before next year. I hear a lot of good things about it. I made friends with the new executive director of the SGCA and Stephanie Fitzpatrick and all that whole crew up there.
I've been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah, no, I mean, just random comments. Great job. So, it's always good, right?
That's always good.
every time I drive down Woodmore Road, I pass by your house. I think of you.
Well, as soon as it gets warm weather, you see me walking the dogs again.
Yeah, exactly.
You do? I thought I could come.
oh, you can since you're paid up on your tax.
It's your entrance fee.
Here we go.
You. Bill, how'd butternut squash go? Thank you.
Not the baby food of choice to use.
Got it.
We'll just leave that right there.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, are you ready?
Yeah, just like I wanted.
Get going. Huh?
He's right there.
He's right here. He's walking up. So,
Hold on, Phil.
hey,
Up here.
1 minute. Let Chris up here. Oh no. Well, he's a key guy. So.
He's the key guy.
Oh, it's rich inside.
Do you know where Steve Fraser? Somebody give him a call. Yeah,
He's coming. I talked to him earlier.
Sure, he's in the room. Discussing my. Yes. See where he is. It's gotta be.
All right, ready, Councilman? Interesting read.
Councilman Beals here.
Here. Hello, Robert.
Here, everyone please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Before we move to adopt the agenda, I have two items. One is I'd like to move under discussion to the first point place is a discussion on the Challenger Field. And with respect to the restroom, Steve Fraser is also here. So I'd like to have that discussion very first, especially since Bettina and her father, have made an effort to come out. So I wanted to give them the chance to speak during the public portion. So that we would add if you're agreeable.
Yes.
And then also one thing that I had omitted was with respect to Community Day rides contract. I had overlooked that on the agenda, and we need to add that because we need to get moving. Well, I'll add that toward the end of that. So with those two items, then the agenda is.
I'll make a motion to amend the
This
agenda.
button broke when I was.
Okay, put it there.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda for those two items.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we move to amend the agenda. Do we need now a motion to adopt the agenda? Or
Yes,
is
we
that,
do, yeah.
okay.
Make a
So,
motion to,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. The next item will be to open the public portion of the meeting. And as you know from the past, the public portion is to open to the floor for discussions with respect to any of the discussion items and agenda items that we have on the agenda for this evening. And we'd request a person that would like to speak just come on up and come to the podium and address the board by identifying yourself, your name, and your residence location within the town. So anybody that would like to come up, I know Bettina would like to come up, so please come on up at this time. And what we will be doing is after we have the public portion, then we'll also be discussing the specific items such as the Challenger restroom facility and so forth. And Steve Frazier will come up. But please, the floor is yours. Just for the record, your name and address.
My name is Bettina Berchetti. I live at 15 Cindy Lane. So I founded the Wappinger Challenger League 13 and a half years ago, for anyone who's not aware. I've been here before discussing bathroom, and I'm very excited to be up here again, discussing kind of permanent fixes. I know that you mentioned quickly that you were thinking of a permanent structure with 2 stalls. I just want to remind the board that since it is for a specialized accessible field, that anything built must meet every point on ADA regulations.
We're aware.
And that we are in need of a changing table within that.
Okay.
Just for any of our children that may use diapers or other sort of things like that. And then if we're able to, part of the original design that I had 10 years ago was to have the permanent structure of a bathroom, and then also to have just a closet where we're able to store the bats and the helmets and things like that, to take some of the load off of us, and then also give more access to people who want to use it. And then I've said this in the past, but I am always willing to look for grants, fundraisers, ask for material donations, and I'm willing to do that heavy lifting. And then my final ask is that we keep in mind that our season runs from April 6th until the end of June. When the Challenger field was first built, the parking lot was still being constructed during our season, and that led to big problems with the equipment still being around, and our kids having to walk through the roadway. So if we are able to limit construction during the season, that would be very helpful.
Thank you. I will address these and other points. I would speak with respect to just immediate answers to what you said, is that we are going through the design stage, and you'll hear about it from our town engineer, Steve Frazier. We'll talk about it. We're involved in this since we're going to have a permanent facility that also, and I think we have a drawing, right, Steve, or some picture that we have that we'll share tonight, is that we're going to have to probably address the septic system and look at the Department of Health. Pending our construction or working on this, which we'll ask the town engineer to give us an idea how long it takes. We will be having portable units that will be fixed and will be ADA compliant, and so we'll discuss that further. But I think your other two, changing table and closets, it seems like that's reasonable that we can certainly build into the design. As to grants, I will take you up on your kind offer, and we'll work with you. Mr. Gray and his firm also has the CPL, which is now the new firm that merged, Morris Associates, also has grant writing teams. So we intend to use them so we can work together on that. But I think that will be very, very helpful in looking at. Yes?
I have 2 small questions.
Sure.
One, the changing table you mentioned, in the women's room or in both?
So
There's a men and a women's.
Required by the code now.
Yes.
New construction requires it.
I'm asking which one. That's
In
both.
my mind,
I think it's both under the code.
yeah,
okay.
under new code, I believe it's.
All right, number 2 question. How big is the closet gotta be for hats and helmets and things like that?
So the tiniest would have to be like a little bit more than a person, and then the length of. We have 2 bags of helmets, a bag of bats, and a tee.
Could we add in, if it's not in that actual space, but add, outside on the outer wall or something? There must be a way that we could do that.
We're thinking about, that we like, and Steve likes, is a precast concrete unit.
Right, so you could get a shed and put
Get
it
a
in.
shed next to it
So
or something.
Or it could be designed into it. That'd be the best.
The conceptual that the town board saw via email, have Bettina seen that?
No, I don't think so.
I think you should
We
take
have that
take a
here.
look at that.
I have it right here.
Steve, share a copy.
Definitely like to hear some input.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at. There would be a small utility room in between the 2 restrooms
Okay.
that would allow access to the utilities and could be used for storage.
So like
I don't have the
a four-
dimensions on that
Like a
yet.
4x4 closet, something like
Yeah,
that.
something along that line.
And I'd ask, Mr. Frazier and our town engineer to work with you, so you'd review and be involved in the design, so we look at it and, take into consideration special needs, which you're
Yeah.
very aware of, so. And I think the board is strongly, behind this project.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That makes me very happy, and I know it's going to make my kids and their parents very happy.
Yeah. So, when, during our discussion period, and Mr. Frazier will come up and talk about it, and maybe also address a couple of the other things on your list as well. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you for
very
coming.
much.
Just one thing, though, before Bettina
Yeah.
exits. So the schedule that she mentioned, the season runs June through,
April
through June.
6th through the end of June.
excuse me, April through June. So for this particular season, obviously, we're not going to have this building constructed for the beginning of this season, but I think it would be appropriate to explain what we would have in place for opening day of this year.
Yeah,
So that
Steve,
she's
I think
aware.
Steve's going to do that, because there's going to be a temporary structure pending that, obviously, for the use of the children.
Because it takes time to obviously build that.
Yeah,
So our primary concern in previous discussions was making sure that we had something in place for opening day. Obviously, it's going to have to be in place for the April to June time period so that this can be properly constructed. So just understand that, that's been discussed.
No, I do understand that, and
Okay.
I know that it's already late in February, and I didn't see it happening within the next month. So,
Okay.
Well, when Steve Frazier comes up to address, then if you have another question too, we'll be happy to let you ask him, participate
Very good.
in it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bettina. Do we have any other comments during the public portion with respect to other aspects or the same, issue? I don't see any.
Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public portion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The public portion is closed. Now, we'll move into the discussion portion and actually just continue the
Excuse
same
me.
discussion for it. So, want to move to open the
I'll move to open the discussion for Inspiration Field.
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? So we'll turn the floor over to Steve Frazier.
Okay,
Just take a look and pass them down if you would, please.
okay, sure.
And then, Mr. Gray, you can add in, and Mr. Rand too, if there's any issues. So we'll start with the Challenger Field discussion.
Okay, as the engineer mentioned, we're looking at a precast building. I have 4 samples of what would be available to us to suit the bill. There would be 2 rooms, men's and women's room, which would be fully ADA compliant. There'd be a small utility room in between the 2 that would allow us access to the utilities of the building and could be used for storage. I would imagine that's going to be 4 to 5 feet wide, probably the full width of the building. We have some more details to work out before we can give you a firm price. We're still at the 160 mark on that. By selecting the model that we should focus on here tonight, we can start narrowing down pricing on it. Some of that is contingent upon the health department allowing us to use the existing septic field. We're still waiting for an answer from them on that. And then once we have this building nailed down on which one we're looking at, we can start determining what the elevations would be required on the field for that particular building and start getting that cost whittled down to a closer number.
Now, the number that you mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that also includes what I call a surcharge with respect to contingency, engineering, lawyer, and other,
We're trying to give you a somewhat realistic number at this point. It would include all the,
right.
I'm going to call it bureaucracy, for lack of a better word, involved in getting this done as well.
Which I hope
with the government job, it's
which I hope, as I've discussed with Mr. Gray, for an NGO, non-government operation, business that's not there to make money and is handling, handicapped, children, disabled, and other, characteristics that you take in that into consideration, and maybe that surcharge isn't quite as high. That's okay. Please look into that. Okay, thank you.
We'll do that regardless.
Okay, thank you.
The interest here is to bring it in at the lowest cost possible.
Right.
But we did want to give you, numbers that you
No, I
should
agree.
have available if that were the case. Funding, again, it is eligible to come from the Parklands Trust Fund.
For people in here that don't know what Parklands Trust is, that we have a separate fund that has been developed as a result of payments from developers and others that are designated to go help buy, parklands or to do capital improvements, which this would be. So it's something that I think has been dear to, Councilman Beal, and Cosmet, who've been here for a number of years. So you're correct, we do have money, but also we do take up Bettina on helping us with grant monies too. Because how much was grant money before, Bettina? Do you remember?
150 to million.
Yeah,
for the
so
first
the
grant.
original community block grant was 150,000, and then the town also put in another 50,000, I believe.
And I think
And
there
then
was
we ended up
a
putting-
second one too.
Yeah, we put in a second
Right.
one, which is, I believe, the second community block grant. Was either 100 or 50.
I don't remember. the number.
And then the town put in more money. There was so much money.
Yeah, so the federal government has reinstated the community block grant funding. So I think it might be an opportunity, again, for us to pursue. However, the chance of us getting a third or fourth community block grant might be a little bit less, but I'd say it meets the criteria.
Sure. And we're upgrading current facilities
Right.
and enhancing the nature of the whole field and structure out
But either way, we do have, as you said, we have the Parkland Trust funding is not taxpayer dollars. That's specifically designated for improving recreation assets and capital projects such as this. So grants are always nice, but if the grants don't work out, we have a plan to fund this.
Okay, very good.
We also did not receive the community block grants under current County Executive Mark Molinaro, and Mark Molinaro is a very large supporter of Challenger, and
So it was the previous
it was
administration?
to-
Right, okay, so it was, I didn't realize that. It was the previous administration, county executive administration, that had authorized those grants, so we haven't received one under this administration.
Okay.
So that might make
So,
our
yeah,
chances
we'll
better.
look into that as well.
I mean, there also is probably private grant monies that may be available as
Well,
well. so-
we know, that a couple,
Outside the-
one or two of the financial institutions in the town has a very attractive, foundation program. So this, I think, certainly one that I've talked with could be, a candidate for consideration of that too. It's a good point, Mr. Rand.
Yeah, I mean, you can broaden it, particularly with respect to disabilities. I think there's,
The supervisor and Councilman Beal had replied to me on the email regarding the style. If I could get a consensus from the board tonight on which one you prefer. This was the one that the two had chosen to focus on.
Is the center room, is it access from the backside or from the
Yeah,
inside?
the access is going to be in the back.
Yeah.
Well, is it going to meet all the needs that we spoke about?
Of course.
We'll be able to put a changing room in there and
It's
possibly.
just the exterior, decor that is different between them.
Understood. Yeah, no, I'm fine with that design.
Is it graffiti proof?
We'll try to focus on at
Good
least
point.
making it.
I don't know if anything's graffiti proof, but certainly
I think we could
painting
probably
that.
request a coating that is resistant.
Yeah, resistant.
You
Yeah.
probably specify that.
Right.
Just clean it off.
This is a precast concrete
Okay.
structure.
And even if it isn't, if we treat it before it's put in place,
Right.
then it'll be fine.
Yeah, good.
So I
Yeah, before you go, if we're finished with that,
well, I thought we could do some of the others that we have them up there on.
yeah, no, I wanted to talk about I wanted to talk more about Inspiration Field.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And the budget's in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
How
was
about
gonna-
Inspiration Field?
yeah, about the temporary structure, the fencing, and the leveling of the
Well,
outfield.
you're calling it a temporary structure. About the only thing I have available to me is portable restrooms.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Okay. There'll be ADA compliant portable restrooms. I'm going to work on getting them available with the pump stations inside to wash hands. I've also looked into having an exterior hand wash station that we could purchase outright. I haven't come across them being available rental, but they're under $1,000. We would have to probably service it weekly. But I do have, we constructed a water trailer that we could take there to service the thing if we did go that route.
Is that, did we sufficiently fund that under the Challenger, Inspiration Field budget line, or do you need some additional?
I'm doing the fence repairs off of that at the moment, and once that is complete, then I'll know what the balance is on that.
Well, the appropriated line exists. I think there's 5,000 in the line, which, the reason why you couldn't see it is the budget you're looking at online doesn't break down to all the finite numbers.
Okay.
So there's 5,000, which we put in there as basically an earmark line. So if he runs out of money in that line, we can move money into that line to continue with these projects.
Right.
I don't have any
Yeah,
objection to that.
I don't either.
And you'll be able to, I assume that you'll be able to, once you finish the fencing, be able to tell us if you need any more funding, be able to order the temporary
I'll keep you
restrooms
informed
prior
of what's
to
happening with
Yeah,
that.
prior to opening day, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And I recall, Bettina, you had a concern about the seam or something with respect to the field?
Yeah, the leveling of
The
the
leveling
outfield.
of the ground or something, so,
So the field, when it was originally poured, the area behind home plate was left as pavement, left as asphalt instead of the rubber. So we had to go back in and put the rubber in. Since it was not laid at the same time, those two seams are now pulling away. That's not something I know how to fix yet. It's something I would have to do some research into to see if it's just a process of melting that rubber and kind of sealing it back together or what, I don't know. And then in the outfield is the larger crack rather than just the pulling away of the two seams from the concrete curb, which is underneath the rubber.
okay. Steve, have you had a chance to look?
I looked at it, I'm looking into solutions to that problem.
Okay.
And some of the transition problems are going to need to wait till the frost comes out of the ground
Understood.
to see what we're left with.
Okay. So then once you get an idea, then come back to us
Right.
and report. And maybe at the same time, we'll know a little bit better on the costs, that you're going to need to run.
What year was that field done?
It was opened in April 2012.
Okay,
We
all right.
got our first grant in 2010, and it was, like I said, we.
So we're at 7 years now on this, so there's obviously going to be preventative maintenance that's going to need to be done. The problem with town government in this town is every other year, it could be different council members, so we want to make sure that we have a capital plan
Right.
in place for that field that will, say over the next 5 years, these things need to be done so that we can have preventative maintenance. Because I think normal wear and tear from the ice and, the freeze and thaw that happens every year, right? You're going to see some of these types of things occur. So hopefully when we're done assessing this issue and finding some solutions, we can develop more of a long-term solution where we can, attack these things ahead of time.
Where I'm seeing more of the usual, like, it's 7 years old kind of the situation is like the curb along the dugout where the rubber is somewhat pulling away.
Right, okay.
Because that is the rubber stretching from
Yeah.
the thaw,
Yeah.
the concrete and the asphalt doing
Right.
the seam. But this two seams on the field
Yeah,
is not, like, that should never have happened.
okay.
And the crack itself in the outfield kind of should never have happened.
See, when they originally built it, they put a concrete curb to separate the end of the rubber and the grass in the outfield. And the curb, because the original design is that the rubber would have gone right to the fence, the outfield fence, just a different, it would have been green. And then when you got to the fence, you would put the concrete curb at the end, and it would be under the fence, in the outfield. But when they built the field, they determined they were gonna leave the outfield grass.
Do the money.
So they put the rubber, instead of eliminating the curb, they put the curb at the end of the rubber.
Okay.
Separate, and then when we said that's a tripping hazard,
Right.
they kind of came back and put the rubber over it, and that's where it's cracking. And it's been cracking since like year one.
Okay.
We've been lucky, we've had pretty mild winters, so it has, it just separates a little each winter.
Okay. We'll take a look at it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Steve, on the Inspiration Field Challenger League?
No, we're, as soon as the snow melts off, I have the fence contractor ready to come in there and make the repairs to that field that we spoke of.
And again, what day did you say, Bettina, opening day?
April 6th, Town Little League is opening on April 6th,
Okay. Okay, so note that.
as long as there's no snow.
We don't need any more snow.
Last year we had a beautiful day, so hopefully it just continues.
This year we will too.
Yep. Okay. Steve, since you're up here, then I'll skip over the recreation advertisement policy, and Mr. Rain can wait later. Why don't you start going through the rest of your list of items?
I spoke with Mike Tremper at KMO Pollution about the water line at Martz. He suggested we replace the 3/4 inch line with a 2-inch line coming in from the long court connection there. There's two ways we could go about this. Mike and I spoke, we came up with a number of $5,000 if we did it in-house. The machine that you allowed me to purchase is ideal for this job. And the engineer gave me an estimate of $25,000 if it were to be contracted out. Now, the only thing is, once I start opening the ground up, I'm going to be committed to that job until it's finished.
How long will it take?
I would expect to be inside of a week in getting that done. But, once we have started doing it, then, I'm not going to be available to do the other things that we've been going.
Do you have money in your current budget that would cover that?
I believe that I don't have that amount in Martsfield. And again, I think this is something that would be covered by the Parklands Trust Fund.
Yeah.
Capital
Right.
improvement.
It's a water
Yeah,
line.
it's capital improvement.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a $5,000 job. I mean,
Right.
we're using in-house labor, saving us money.
Assuming they do it.
That's always good.
Yeah.
Okay, the town hall PA system. Currently, the only way the supervisor has to speak with all employees at once is through the phone consoles on the desktops. There's many areas of town hall that aren't covered by that. In the event of emergency and have to make an emergency announcement or such, the volume on these phone consoles is very low too. If someone happened to be away from their desk in the office, probably wouldn't hear it. So we did look into having a building-wide PA system with the mic being in the supervisor's assistant's office. That came in and that would be speakers everywhere. I made sure that every single room would be covered, including the utility rooms, the boiler room upstairs, and so you would have full coverage of the building. And that came in at just under $13,000. What I'll do is send you folks the entire proposal so you can look at it in detail. Question that came up is that this company I got the quote from is a minority-owned company. And they said because of that they weren't subject to competitive bidding. The other side of this is, very few companies available to actually do this kind of work in locally. So it's almost a sole provider as well.
Well, I mean, it would be a public works contract, so I'm assuming most of the cost is the labor associated with it rather than the equipment itself. So that would be a public works contract, so to the extent you're...
Well, under 13, that 35, I believe, is the code.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So 13's not, it would only be
Right.
subject to the procurement policy.
Right, which requires a few quotes, but I'm
Right.
having difficulty in getting several.
Well, I mean, again, what the procurement policy says is if you can't get 3 quotes, then you live with the number of quotes you're able to obtain.
Okay.
The phone system doesn't have the ability to interact with a PA system where
You
you
don't
can...
have a PA system.
Right, but I'm saying rather than have a microphone sitting in in an office, doesn't the phone system have the ability to dial a code that could trigger a PA system once we have a PA system?
I guess that's a possibility. Didn't take a real close look at our phone system here. I had actually asked him about that as well.
The reason why I bring that up is if something happens in the building and there's nobody near that office and somebody needs to make a building-wide announcement, they could do it from any phone. So at the county, the way it works is there's one code that goes to the phones, right? There's another code that goes to the PAs throughout the building and the phones. Sure. So if you had an unauthorized individual in the building that was presenting a threat, there is a protocol within the county office building where a certain code is dialed and it would go through the phones and the PA system for a lockdown. So the point I'm trying to make is you'd be able to initiate that from any phone. So if the threat was down on this side of the building and the microphone was down on that side of the building, you wouldn't be able to get to the microphone. You'd be able to do it from any phone. So we should look at if our phone system has the ability to do that.
I believe this is a voice over IP phone system.
It shouldn't, yeah, so is the county. It shouldn't matter.
So, no, I'm just saying is, that gives you a lot more flexibility in a voice over IP than, the old-time hardwired systems.
On an in-house system, though, if the phone system has the functionality to do that, I don't know if this phone system has the functionality to do that. It may only have the ability to talk through the phones themselves. I don't know, but I think it should at least be explored.
I'll look into that. What I'll do is put these folks in contact with our phone company here.
Yeah.
Our phone provider.
You'll still need the PA aspect of it, but
Right.
you just wouldn't need the microphone.
Right.
What about putting something to broadcast outside in case anybody's outside
Could always
also?
add speakers if
That's what I mean.
you
I
wish,
think that's
or-
something that should be
Yeah.
added, because
Okay.
if there's people out in the parking lot, they should be made aware if there's a situation.
Okay.
Please, thank you.
The next item was improvements to the audio in this room. We've had instances where folks have trouble hearing us from the meetings. We've had instances of feedback, so we looked at that. Currently, the microphone system here is old-style analog. What they proposed was switching to a digital system, which would eliminate feedback, and they would have the microphones on the dais, and then 4 wireless microphones, which would all send a signal to the audio room in the back. 2 of those wireless mics would be lapel units for the professionals here, and then there would be 2 handhelds for folks coming up to the podium to speak. That system was from the same company and came in at just under $6,000. And again, I will send you all the details on the equipment involved in that.
Did you also look into other audiovisual, like projector? I think Michael Miner had looked into it. Have you talked with him? Because I think we need other AV system as well.
Yes.
I haven't had a chance to speak with them. The Association of Towns kind of mentioned works in the 2 storms that we've had. But I spoke with him briefly to say what we
He's
were looking
here
to do.
tonight, too.
And I am planning to contact him and show him what we have.
Because otherwise I have to rely on Bill Beal for the
Excuse me.
expertise.
I only wear one hat at a time. I'm not on the AV squad here, so.
But yeah, we're looking at that, and then the other one thing I forgot to mention is there would be an auxiliary audio input on the amplifier back there that would allow you to put any outside source audio in through the PA system.
So, I mean, when we look at this room, obviously, this should be able to be funded through the franchise agreement.
By the way, Mr. Rand, have you finished the attachment yet?
Yes, I have to send that out. I was out of the office today.
Okay. Send that out tomorrow because they're waiting for it. I think
I
they
know,
give us the
I
deadline.
spoke to Roger Connor.
Okay. So once we get that in, Mr. Bill, then we're able to get the contract done. I mean, the contract signed. It's just waiting for that attachment.
I mean, these microphones that we have on the dais are good microphones. I don't think we need to replace them. These are Shure Microflexes. These are solid mics. But, I mean, within this room, I think that obviously there needs to be an upgrade, but we need to make sure that the sound system that we're looking at is going to be compatible with the camera system that we would be looking at also.
If I may, since I've been doing this all my life, I think the mics are not the issue. I think it's the amplifier. So depending on the ins and outs that you want, as long as you have a series of LXRs, XLRs to deal with that. But if you have enough heft in the amplifier, then you can control the pop. Just a question of what little satellites you need around the room. I don't think you need to necessarily do such an extreme overhaul.
I tend to agree with Mr. Wayne's statements. Yes. The other thing that needs to happen is, it can sound perfectly fine in this room, but as we know on television, it could sound horrible, and that has to do with the systems communicating in the back room. So I'd be interested to see what information you get, but I think we need to make sure that we do this whole thing as a total package. We should have, in my opinion, we should have flat screens. They're not expensive. We should be able to shoot PowerPoints up on flat screens that are not only visible to the town board, but visible to the audience and able to be put on the television channel as well.
Michael Miner had, taken a look at my request, just generally, and I think when we get to the contract, he can also
That's
mention what
important.
he described, what he found as
Right.
well.
If I just may add one thing.
Sure.
When the sacrosanct of the audio in this room, we're talking apples and oranges and apples of rice when you start dealing with your video system. That's a whole different thing. I would love to see a top-end video system that could potentially be detachable and portable, that if you have other spectacular events, if it's specifically the camera, that then you plug in, you can do your post-editing here. There's money in the bank, gentlemen and ladies.
Isn't that what Michael
Thank
had
you.
brought?
That's what,
Yeah, I
that's
think
what I thought,
Michael's
that's what
talking
Michael
about it,
was
too.
talking about.
I agree with you
It would be
100%.
a
Thank you.
package, a
Thank you.
package deal that could
Yep.
answer all our questions and needs and be state-of-the-art.
Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Okay, I had been asked to look at putting a Knox box, which is a small safe that the fire department uses to put a key to the building inside of for Carnwath Farms. This led to a problem, being that there's somewhere between 20 and 50 keys that are required to get every place within the property. What I've done then is looked at an electronic lock system, which could be implemented townwide eventually. You could build it as you go, so that your pass would get you wherever you were to be authorized to go, through the supervisor of the system, which could be programmed from a laptop. Initial cost for the software/hardware to do the programming is around $500, and then I was given a cost of $1,300 per door. These are rough estimates. We'd have to put it out to quotes, hard quotes, then if you wanted to move forward with that. And then again, like I mentioned, it could be expanded townwide to any town-owned building if that was the wish to do so.
Okay, go ahead on the restroom.
Okay, in the senior center, we've had two problems that could be resolved together.
Serious problem.
Yeah, the line from that room clogs frequently because there's oftentimes things flushed that shouldn't be. They are also requesting that the seats be higher toilets.
the ladies typically have trouble.
get up and
I don't
down.
need any more information.
Yeah, it's-
I'll be happy to give you some more.
I'll take your word for
I
it.
was just giving you the least of
I need
it.
to hide a toilet.
the solution would be a toilet with a shredder mounted to it and at the proper height.
Just
Yeah.
give us the bottom line.
Okay. Bottom line, to do both rooms is $8,500.
Sure, we have money in the town hall.
That line is currently at $38,000.
Right, so we have money to do whatever we need to do.
Yeah, I agree. And also make them happy, make Jessica's people in that room very happy, actually.
So I think I actually need town board approval on this number to move forward.
All right, so I'll move that we authorize the supervisor of building and grounds to spend up to what?
$8,500.
$8,500 for the purposes of upgrading the restroom facilities in the senior center.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion passed.
Okay. Have a problem. It's actually been there since I started at the Carnwath Chapel. There are, on each end of the chapel, there are sections of the building that have a flat roof that adjoins to the chapel. Each of these spots leak into the building. We've made a number of attempts to repair them. The repairs are temporary. Went down with the engineers and looked at it, and we have determined that these roofs are actually pitched towards the building. So anytime that, the repairs that we make, once they age, then the water is there again to leak back in. It's done quite a bit of damage inside. It's going to continue to do so. One is actually over top of an electrical panel. The solution that we've come up with is to put shed roofs over these flat roofs, which would make the water run away from the building. And both of them included, the engineer had mentioned that we should expect to pay up to $100,000 on these. If they went out to bid, they may come in at lower, but again, wanted to have an idea of what we're up against.
Okay.
It's a poor design from the beginning when the building was built.
Okay.
Is the power still onto that box?
It is.
Yeah, we need to secure that power somehow, because I've seen exactly what you're talking about. Obviously, we can't act on this right now.
No, but if you want us to move forward with it, we'll start getting.
I think we should move forward.
Plans
That building, and unfortunately, Mr. Wayne has left. He's going to
He's on the phone now.
Oh, okay. But he also has looked at it. I think it has a lot of potential as far as, using that as we, reconfigure, using the chapel and other, spaces, particularly from arts and culture point of view as well, so.
But right now, nobody is using it for anything,
No.
am I correct?
No, but the plan is to.
Yeah, no, I know what the plan
before,
is, but I mean, right now, there's
Currently, no.
no
the building's
safety
closed.
issue
No,
or
we don't
anything.
have the water.
I think the main issue is the live
Excuse
box
me.
right now for electrical, and what happens if the water finally.
Excuse me,
puts it
right,
out.
exactly.
Yeah, so I think we need to move forward with getting proposals on
Okay.
correcting the situation. That's my personal opinion,
Right, I
because
think the next step would be allowing the engineering company to put a detailed plan together and then start,
But initially, though, is there something where you can turn off the electricity to make sure
I
that there's
can
no?
look at turning that panel off.
If we turn off that panel, at least we keep, the live
Right.
wires under control first, and then we can
Right,
have the
that's what
engineer
I-
take
yeah.
a look at.
But
Yeah.
that'll cut all power.
you got to just, right, before you do that, though, as you know, let's look at what's going through that box, because we don't want to cause more damage than
No,
good.
agreed.
If there's a workaround somehow, just take a look at it. You've seen I've seen it myself, and it's clearly something that needs to be addressed. The best way to address it, I think, is going to be by a professional or yourself as a professional to, we don't want to shut off the elevator that we need to use for getting documents out when we
No,
just.
that wouldn't be affected by
Okay.
that. I think that box
Excuse me.
is just solely for the chapel.
Okay, all right.
That way, Steve. That way.
Yes, Mr. Wayne?
I know it's apples and rice, I just dealt with a plumbing issue in my home, but there's a similarity here. So not having to turn the default total off, there should be a consideration from an engineer, electrical engineer, to have split directional what's the main and subset, so you can then break specific breakers without going to the main of any individual dwelling or the total main of the area. And I think that will save you money as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Something to
Steve,
consider.
we'll take that under consideration, advisement, appreciate that. Steve, why don't, we have on here an item, conversion of Castle Point Park softball field to the youth soccer field. That's a proposal we've gotten from the soccer league. They reviewed the softball field, and I know I'm throwing this out to you cold, okay, so I want to see your response.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
No, that's okay. So they believe that the lower field down there is usable, with respect to their soccer program. At a time where we have continued rainy weather, that seems to be drier, so they would get the younger kids with a smaller field down there. Do you see any, barriers, or do you see any?
No, we've been maintaining that field, and what the soccer league provides the markers and goals,
right,
and they do the striping. So basically, all we need to do is provide them the mowed field, which has been, mowed continuously since.
So you see no reason yourself why we couldn't allow them to
No, not
look
at all.
into that as part of the contract that was signed?
Is there lights there if they wanted to
No,
play at night?
Not
Okay.
right now.
We're gonna need somebody to open and close the gate.
The only thing that,
Exactly.
I have that worked out with the
Okay.
president of the soccer league.
Got it.
Steve, the only thing that I recall, and I think I'd mentioned this to the board before, is that we have a couple of very bad
Fences.
bleachers,
Oh, bleachers.
smaller bleachers there that would need to be repaired. So if you could take a look at it and give us a cost estimate,
I think they need to be replaced.
I think
Yeah,
they do
I
need to
think-
be replaced, and preferably with, metal ones.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Rather
it's
than
been my
those
plan
wood
since
ones.
it
Right,
started.
exactly.
I discussed that before, I think, Mike, we discussed it, where I think just look into, it shouldn't be a large expense, but let us know what that is and how we would do that, because I think that would help too with getting the soccer field. If the board doesn't have any issues, then I'd say that we have Jessica go advise the soccer club that, they can feel free to do that, coordinate with us, the use of that field.
Since we're talking about fields, do we have any update regarding the signs?
1 second, if we could go back
Yes.
to the chapel roof for a moment.
Yes.
I just would need a motion to move forward if that's the,
I'll move it.
A second.
Just
Well,
on the
just
question,
the
what specifically are we authorizing?
Temporary.
my request is to authorize the engineers to put a plan together to bring before the board.
To fix the roofs.
Right, so when we say plan, though, how in depth are we going to get on this?
Enough to go to bid.
Okay, and what do you think that's going to cost?
Less than 10,000.
Okay.
Okay.
So I would respectfully ask Councilman Cosmas to include in his motion not to exceed 10.
I will amend my motion based upon that request not to exceed 10,000.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passed. Thank you, Steve.
Okay,
So we
So
had a
back to
question.
the signs that go outside all the parks, is there anything?
the rules,
Yes.
I don't have them put together yet. Need to meet with the recreation director and
Do you know when we might, because the spring is coming and
get right on them. There's a lot of
I'm
things that have
afraid,
become top
you know,
priority, and I'm trying to
I
sort that out.
understand, but the parks are a big thing and
As long as they don't interfere with
I'd
Challenger
like to
and
know.
Inspiration
Yes,
Field,
exactly.
okay?
But that is something that people need to see.
Right.
We'll make sure
Please.
Inspiration Field gets done.
Yes. You can prioritize.
Okay. I think that, yes, sir.
May I ask a question? Just what exactly are you using Conworth for anyway?
Well, that's not on the agenda, so we'll save that for another time. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
If I may, before Steve leaves, regarding the ADA bathroom, I discussed with the health department today some testing and checking we could do to kind of get an understanding of the existing septic field there. So everybody knows, I don't want to build a new septic field. I want to use the existing one up by the concession stand and put a pump station and pump the effluent from the bathroom to there. The thrust of my discussion with the health department was that those bathrooms are already being used, so likely there won't be a lot more flow going into that system. Regardless of that, they want us to, basically we have to open up the distribution box and find, we don't know anything about the septic system that's there. Learn about the septic system. We have a water meter that was installed up in that concession building back 10 years ago at least. So we have readings on how much water is going into that system. And we can make a good judgment on whether or not we need a septic system. That's a large contingency in our estimate. So if I can narrow that down, it can help us with the price.
Sure.
I'd like to get authorized to do that.
To take a review of the
Investigate
septic system.
The septic system, and also we need to get water over to this building. So
Okay.
he's going to practice it on his feet and say,
Well,
it's good.
I don't have a problem with that and authorizing the engineer, so I guess we have
So we get a better number.
Sure,
motion.
I'll make that motion.
Back to the same earlier question, what do you think that would cost
Yeah.
to do that estimate?
It's hard to say, but I mean, it's certainly not, I mean, I would say way less than 5,000.
So not to exceed 5,000?
Yeah, that would be.
That's fine. I'll make the motion not to exceed 5,000.
A second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions?
As long as I don't need the
Motion
lawyer,
passed.
I'm good.
Okay, no, that's right. Well, we'll watch him very closely. Yeah. Okay, Steve, did you have anything more to
I
add?
think we're good. I
think we are.
Yeah, that's enough to absorb for tonight.
And you have plenty of
Before
homework to
next
do
meeting.
for the next meeting. Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
I just have one, I got one housekeeping issue, if I may.
Sure.
Relative to the budget for Steve's department. And if we can act on this, I'd appreciate it. If not, I understand. There was, and I had an email here from Frederick, apparently there was a calculation issue on one of Steve's positions that
Correct.
prevents him from hiring a full-time position because only 50% of the salary was appropriated. We can fix this right now if you would so allow by appropriating $17,000 from a fund contingency to 7110.109A. If you would be willing to entertain that tonight, I would appreciate it, because just hearing the fact that he's going to be doing this water line is going to take a week.
Are you introducing that in the form of a motion?
As if the board would allow, I will move it.
I'll second it.
What's the remaining amount in the contingency?
This is overall a fund contingency.
Overall,
so,
okay,
Yeah, this is
okay.
not his line. This
Okay.
is coming from the actual A fund
Okay,
contingency.
okay,
So
understood.
that's not going to be an issue, but it would be going to 7110.109A to add to the current 16,380, which would give him
Okay.
the amount as per Frederick to correct that
Okay.
situation, Steve, correct?
Right.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay.
No, it's second already.
Yeah, I seconded it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion passed.
And again, I apologize for not having this written out. Usually we want to do that, but I didn't remember until he talked
Yeah,
about
no, that's fine.
that
I'm
specific
glad you
project.
remembered.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jerry, why don't you come up and talk about the dog control in the various parks, please?
Well, as our supervisor found out recently, there is a situation with Carworth at times. And I think we can address that problem by putting some additional signage up. But as I was speaking with him earlier today, and he happened to mention to me that the website would be redesigned by the county to include just a notification to the dog owning residents.
Yes,
that
we'll be doing that.
all parks to be used by dogs have to be leashed at all times, and they all must be cleaned up after.
Now, I recall, Mr. Horan, you had mentioned something that the code actually speaks in terms of control and not lease.
Yes, but I guess the other question is, are dogs treated in the park rules?
I would have to double check, I believe so.
You know, because that actually, I mean, the provision that deals with the control of dogs, it's at 68-9 of the town code, and it's been there for quite a while, probably since the 1960s. It talks in general and says that if you have, a dog may not run at large in a public place, meaning off of private property, unless it's within the control of the owner. That's the specific language. And then there's a separate issue specifically regarding female dogs in heat, and they are required to be leashed at all times. So those are the provisions in the code which apply town-wide.
Okay.
There's a provision regarding parks specifically that says that, the town may make specific rules for parks. So, if there's a specific rule for parks, that provides that all dogs must be leashed. And if the park rules specifically provide for that, I looked quickly to see the park rules, but I couldn't find them. But, if the park rules specifically say any dog in the park must be on a leash, then that would trump the general
I would think
provision.
there would be some parks that would probably be inappropriate for dogs. I mean, especially like the
Correct.
playing fields, because you wouldn't, there's no reason to be,
Right.
to have that. I mean,
mean,
Carnworth is a
So
situation where.
the reason why, again, for the public's information, I think board members know, is that this has come up because of a number of complaints that we received, and in fact, attacks by dogs out at Carnwath. And so Mr. Owen has been called in and actually talked with one or two, and I think Mr. Wayne also has been in a similar situation or two out at Carnwath, because it's getting a lot of, people walk there a lot.
May I?
Yes, please.
May I?
Yes, please. Make it brief, but I wanted you to just testify with respect to this issue.
All right.
How do you-
The control issue is absolutely spot on. Just use Manhattan for a second. Manhattan, right? They have the center lawn, which they allow dogs to run around from a specific hour, hour and a half, plus designated dog areas, depending on the aggressiveness of dogs. I'm going to say it this way. Anyone who has an animal, they know it's like having a child. So without being editorial one way or the other, I think you were going to look out for the well-being of your animal and not want to get into any conflagration. The thing that's very interesting from the synergistic standpoint, specifically with Conrath and all of us who walk our dogs there virtually every day, and we do clean up after ourselves. But the thing is, there's some who drive and then they go down the trails. This is like having wardens on the property. If something is amiss, we're going to be the first to know, not someone who just happened, oh, it's a beautiful day, let's go to the park. All the issues of the dogs running free, they run with themselves in a group, and it's quite extraordinary. It's like watching a nature program. It's quite charming and funny, and it's a great way for people to come together. There are certain people who come and recognize that their animal is a bit neurotic. I mean, I had a boxer that didn't like females, so you would have to a leash. Obviously, dogs in heat, you've got more than that. I mean, that's like a radar. That's going to create even a pecking order issue with other males. So there's a responsibility truly of the owner. But to curtail the ability for an animal to run free with the owner there, I think is a big mistake.
Well, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Owen, you had also talked about the dog,
And also,
area, right?
we're
And we
talking
have
about-
something
We're
like-
talking about responsible owners.
Right. Right.
Which I have to do with the opposite.
Isn't the town law is dogs have to be on a leash?
No, it's
that's- we're
just- Okay.
total control.
Okay.
That's the wording.
If I'm correct, the state parks, like Stony Kill, you're not allowed to have any dogs leashed or
Well,
not.
different towns can have different
Is that-
ordinances.
is that correct,
So it really
though?
depends on the ordinance, on the
No,
town.
I understand that, but I'm trying to get, an understanding of keeping a dog on a leash, keeping a dog under control with an electronic device. There's certain ways or certain types that people will use and dogs running free. But it only takes one dog, unfortunately, to bite a person or a child, and that person is scarred.
Well, it's not even a.
So that is something we have to
In the eyes of the law, an attack is not a bite. It could be an intimidation.
Exactly.
You could cause fear and have a person fall.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, actually,
Reaction.
Yeah, well, actually, a couple of questions just to cut to the chase. I mean, first of all, what would you recommend? Do you have any enforcement ability to actually even enforce some of these things if you needed to? Because I think there was some question as whether or not as dog warden you can do that, or is that you have to bring in the authorities to actually do that?
Well, I mean, all of Chapter 68.9 is enforceable by me. And it states that any dog in violation of that code is seizure or issuing a summons.
You can issue a summons?
I issue summons.
Okay.
Just like a traffic ticket.
Okay, understood. I wasn't sure about that. That was my
These
question.
people vote.
Okay, could you please start, let him speak?
Yeah, let him,
No, continue.
go ahead.
So what I'm thinking, I'm thinking we should make this total control issue to be leashed. I mean, that's what I believe.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the question. And again, one of the other things that we looked at historically, and Mike and Bill know, and council, or former councilman, now highway supervisor Bettina, highway superintendent, we've looked at dog parks over the years. Spook Hill was suggested at one point in time.
Correct.
And so, there's pros and cons regarding that. We've looked at that at some length. I believe, was it LaGrange had a dog park which they got rid of because of issues. And that kind of led to thinking of the board. So one of the issues with respect to dog parks and, dogs running at law, even within a confined space, they had issues with, various dogs attacking other dogs within the park. So it is a challenge for municipalities to accommodate dogs, with respect to, again, the regulations that we have in place regarding control of dogs is in public places. So if you're on private property, they don't typically apply. I think, with respect to, I agree with, Jerry, that in a public place or in a park, it's probably appropriate, especially with children around. The one thing, though, is, as was raised, the issue is enforcement. We don't have a police department. Jerry Owen is not staking out parks. He typically, responds to a call where there's been a dog bite or there's a dog that's at large, which he sees. I mean, we are not really able to proactively prevent these things from happening because we really don't have
The manpower.
enforcement ability. We don't have the ability to do it. If we had targeted patrols by the county to do it, the state police, we've had discussions with them in the past. They won't enforce town ordinances for the most part because it's a time-consuming. It really is a time-consuming thing, and most police agencies see this as being way down on their list of priorities. It's jaywalking to their.
I think,
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
time being, the way I see it is one, we'll take this under advisement, but since Mr. Owen does have the ability to, issue summons, tickets there, or if a dog is not under control and you get a complaint, then you can check it out. Sorry, no more comment.
I just think the wording would be a lot more understood by everyone if the dog had to be leashed.
We'll take that under advisement, but.
It looks like when the town code was written, they were taking under consideration hunters.
Yes, that's exactly what it means.
Because
Yep.
it looks like they're speaking to the hunters, that the dog is accompanying the hunters,
Right.
and
It's
it's under their control.
Right.
So that's the way it looks like it was written. Let me just say this real quick. I don't want to be here till
You
midnight.
could put an exemption for, dogs,
Well,
working dogs or something like that.
Right, but that's technically that would be on private property.
Yeah.
Not always.
Okay. All right.
Well, I don't think we have hunting
Yeah.
rights on any of our public parks.
Well, we have a portion of Stony Kill that
Maybe.
reaches into the town of Wappinger. So we'll get to that another day.
Right.
But the point is, park rules versus town code, real quick. Can we codify park rules specific to parks that are different from other parks?
Yeah, I believe
Okay.
that's.
That's
right.
something we should look at.
I know we've looked at that in issues in the past as far as hours of opening and closing and.
Right. We should look at that. That's one thing. Before we make the signs for the parks, I think we should look at
That should be
specific,
included.
there could be some specific rules to specific parks, right?
Right.
And with respect to Mr. Wayne, I do appreciate his opinion on certain large areas, like we have a 99-acre park. I understand if a dog, my dog is running free, I get that, I appreciate that, but I think we have to make sure we have, if we even consider something like that, we have specific rules for specific parks.
Correct.
And that would be a different type of situation. So that being said, let me just say this. In the densely populated areas of our town, including the village, there is a history of issues with dogs. In the less densely populated areas, generally speaking, correct me if I'm wrong, there's less problems with dogs, right? There was just a pretty serious dog attack in the village last week, dog versus dog, okay? We want to try to prevent those types of things in the areas that we have jurisdiction over. So this is a conversation that would probably be best for a workshop where we can talk about the specific areas. But if you read the code, obviously there was something else in mind when they wrote this 68.9. And I think we can just tighten it up a little bit in certain areas, but also be able to allow some latitude in other areas, perhaps.
Well, that's what we tried to do in the past. That's why we had certain areas where we were talking about or considering allowing this type of conduct, and dog parks was one of the potential solutions. But the other issue, of course, is the idea of enforcement. Jerry can only be at certain places at certain times, so we have to understand that if we're going to allow it in certain areas, we have to make sure it's in a way that Jerry can properly police the areas, because if it's too expansive, then pretty much he's not going to be able to monitor it the way it should be done.
Yeah, I mean, there was talk about, my wife and I, when we were walking our dogs up at Arnworth, that there's a fenced-in area behind the museum, which is almost totally enclosed. Less a stairway going up to the back parking lot, and also some gates that aren't working properly. But we could make that into a small area, and Steve even brought up to my attention today that we actually have cameras installed there. Yeah. So, I mean, if we wanted a small area, which would be easier to clean and be able to watch it at some point, or have some video recording if an incident occurred, that might be something that we could spend very little money on and have an area where the dogs could be let loose.
That's an idea worth
Okay.
exploring.
Well, I think, we'll take it on our
I think there's
advisement,
a
and I
few
think as
things,
Councilman
yeah.
Beal said, we will have a workshop further on this. I just wanted to start some discussion on this particular issue.
One other thing before I close, I want to let you know that I'm working on trying to get a rabies and chip clinic working
Perfect.
for next month.
Perfect.
I spoke with a veterinarian today, and she's going to get back to me this week. That's my biggest thing, is to have a veterinarian, then I can plan on
Perfect.
a week, weekend to do it, like a Saturday or Sunday.
That would
3
be
hours.
great. That would
We
be,
have chips left over, we already bought.
I think that would be very helpful to the community and welcomed
Yeah.
in
While
the
we're on that point,
community.
you want to make an announcement about your program?
Yes, before I do that, though, make sure you continue to communicate with the town clerk. Obviously, for those that happen to still need to be licensed that come in for that type of thing, we can make sure everybody's licensed with their dog license. That being said, tomorrow night, the town, the county, and the school district have teamed up to present Pet First Aid with Dr. McNamara, who's a veterinarian that you probably have dealt with before. You're obviously welcome to attend as well. We have 150 reservations, so
Where it's gonna
it's
be
across the
held? Tell
street,
'em.
Wapenders
Right.
Junior High School, 6 o'clock. It's open to the public. It's preferable if you would RSVP. You can go to the town website and check out the email address, but if you don't have time, just show up. There's lots of space in there.
Right.
It's good knowledge, and it's a great program.
6 to
That's
8.
tomorrow.
6 to 8
to
tomorrow
8
night,
p.m.
Wapenders
tomorrow.
Junior High.
Okay.
So, any
Very
pet, get the word out to people?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
Good to see you again.
Thanks for your work, Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry, thank you.
Thank you. Next item for discussion is the consideration of the 2019 Community Day Grand Marshal. And that was where I wanted to at least discuss the process for selecting a Grand Marshal, since we're going to have a bigger event this year and a parade that takes a different route than it did before.
Well, I can tell you what's usually happened in the past is the Recreation Committee got together and submitted a number of names and ultimately presented it to the town board, and the town board made either approval or voted to approve of their ultimate choice. So I don't know if the Recreation Committee.
The Recreation Committee, had submitted one name, as I think I had communicated, but I think that, I wanted to discuss in light of the nature of this, parade and event this year, did we want to try to think more expansively or?
Yes, I think we need to discuss outside the meeting with the committee the other names that were also brought up. There were other names that were brought up as well, and I think the town board needs to see the list of all the names, not just the one name.
Sure. And I think that was probably what we did in the past, from what I remember.
And no disrespect to the one name, but I know that I've had people approach me and say, well, what about the names that I suggested? How come that wasn't? So just to be fair and to continue the precedent we've had in the previous years where the town board was able to look at the list and say, perhaps we should focus on this individual.
I can forward you over the full list
Thank you.
tonight. Yeah.
Well, in addition to that, though, I would like us to think about, is there perhaps
Others.
somebody else, that
Right.
might have a different type of draw or a different name associated rather than a traditional resident?
Well, I think the town board members should have some input.
No, that's
on-
that's why I raised this.
I was going to
For
say,
the
maybe
board
I'm
members.
I should say maybe I'm subjective about this, but I think whoever has it this year has tough shoes to fill, because last year's
Oh,
probably
of
the
course.
best one I could probably imagine.
Well, last year's emeritus.
Yes.
Last year was Ralph Holt, so
Exactly.
Ralph Holt, in my opinion, is the grand marshal every year.
Exactly.
And maybe he should have some input, too.
I think,
Okay.
no, I think
Did he?
that's important.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason why we're being vague, folks, is we can't talk about the names because it's kind of a surprise to the person. So we
Yeah.
can't sit here and start talking about the names,
Exactly.
or the surprise wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Or if they have names they want to submit, they can.
Jessica, why don't you talk about the rides contract at this time?
Do we have updates from the attorney?
So the only issue I had, there's a couple of provisions that we can add regarding indemnification. I think that's really the only thing that was lacking. I guess one discussion that we had in our prior contracts was regarding identification of the employees of the ride company.
They do that. There
Okay.
were some things that were written into the previous contracts based on what our previous vendor didn't do.
Correct.
Part was indemnification,
Yeah.
part was environmental liability.
Yeah.
No, but one of the things, there were specific requirements in the contract regarding uniforms and
That's right.
identification.
This company does that standardly.
If we put it in, no harm.
They need to be properly identified.
Yep.
Yeah,
So-
that's,
and
So
then
whatever
the other-
that means, they need
And
to
then
be
there was
identified.
also some requirements regarding sanitation of the area, their area, cleaning it up, which I think is.
I believe that there is a time pressure for
Yep.
completing the contract, so what I'd like to propose is that, subject to Mr. Haran and myself, reviewing that along with Jessica, that you authorize me to sign that subject to the.
Move to
proper-
authorize.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion passed. Thank you. Okay?
That's
So
perfect.
then work with Mr. Rand to get the right language, and then we can work that, to get it done quickly. Okay,
I'll reach out to council for the school
okay,
district.
okay. Okay, the last item under discussion was update on recreation advertisement policy and procedures. I don't know, Jim, if you have anything. If not, we can table.
So I went back and looked through, this comes up probably, I'd say, every 5 years. The guidance basically remains the same. We checked back last year with Mitch Morris, who writes the opinions for the Controller's Office. I don't know if he was down in the Association of Towns this year. So basically, the prohibition is that a public park cannot be used to generate, the case law says it can't be used to generate revenue. It specifically, the case dealt with putting advertising on fences around Bryant Park from 1905. So it's quite an old law. It's quite old law. It still hasn't changed. There's been, in the 90s, some distinction which talks about recognizing donations. So to the extent you've got maybe sponsorships for Little League or something to that effect, there is the potential for recognizing the sponsorship. There is a distinction regarding a town acting in a proprietary capacity. There's some cases regarding advertising on buses and bus shelters and things of that nature. But in those cases, they say that operating the bus system is the town acting in a proprietary capacity and not in the capacity as a governmental capacity. That line of cases is truly amazing as to what's proprietary and what's governmental.
And if mass transit is receiving federal funding, also comes into play.
Right. So, I
We
mean,
should also, the fields out there, if we get community block grants, we need to make sure that that's not going to be an issue either.
in doing some research, there's actually there's a statute that prohibits advertising in a state park or parkway or within 500 feet of a state park or parkway. So it's not permitted on state property. But again, you have certain issues with respect to Yankee Stadium, Duchess Stadium. I mean, in those cases, those are actually, they go to the proprietary issue where there's a lease and it's been transferred basically beyond the control of the governmental entity that owns the property.
Jim, is that a matter of the verbiage in accepting the funds?
So again, if you are accepting something, you can accept a donation. A town may accept a donation to be used for a specific purpose and may recognize that donation.
So the intention would be to accept donations that would then be used toward the maintenance and repair and maintenance of the grounds, right? That's my idea on that.
And then acknowledging them via sign?
Then you could have a sign at a specific dimension that
Correct.
would be placed out there.
Oh, all right, so you take the revenue and you put it into a specific escrow or trust account for the purposes of furthering the asset.
Correct.
Then you're allowed to do it?
Again, you recognize it as a donation.
I can never get a straight answer out of you.
The answer is yes, correct, Mr. Horan?
You can do it as a donation, yes.
So you accept the donation, then you just acknowledge the donation
Yeah,
via
and we
signage?
put it into the fund that would go to the maintenance of those fields
Right,
and
it's not going to
grounds.
go to the general, it would
It
not.
does not go A fund, it goes specific to an account for the purposes
Well,
of,
actually, no, it would go, I mean,
it's an A fund trust.
it's probably a trust and agency.
Right.
Can I
D-
throw in?
We don't need, hold on for 1 second, we don't need to have a third-party 501c3 in the middle of this?
You could, no, you don't have.
Is it cleaner?
You need the 501c3 to solicit.
Okay, that's the other side of this.
The
So it's
town may
easier just to
not
create a
solicit
501c3.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
to do.
So, because the town, again, there's other case law that says the town may not solicit donations,
Right, I get that.
but you can have a
We
501c3.
created the 501c3 for the seniors.
Right.
To allow them to solicit donations, and it goes in there, and
As far as Little League goes, they're already a 501c.
Correct.
That's if they're going to be doing the solicitation.
Yeah, for the,
Correct.
but then we don't have the.
We don't have
you know,
control of the,
Control
the
the
revenue.
for the park maintenance.
This is a non-traditional revenue scenario, right?
Right.
So
That's the idea.
my personal opinion is you create a 501c3, that's whatever the name is, right? Friends of
So it
whatever.
wouldn't be us, it would be
We,
some
we
interested
help,
members of the public.
Right.
we help facilitate the creation of a 501c3.
No, some interested members of the
Okay,
public.
I get it. So it has to
Got
be
it.
distinct, separate and distinct from the town.
Correct.
Okay.
Jessica,
Sorry, go ahead.
you were interrupted.
No, one of the things that I had been reading, and could you just clarify for me, it was that you could sell advertising and put it in this kind of trust to offset specific projects at, for the upkeep and maintenance of certain town assets. And it did, like for the buses, it was saying you could sell advertising because it went directly to offset the costs of running a transit
Again,
system.
buses are kind of different.
Yeah. But I think his answer was yes, for the purposes of the repair, maintenance, upgrade of the facilities, the assets out there at the park.
I mean, if it's
But
a,
without
if
the
it's a,
501 in the middle.
again, a donation.
Like cleaner.
I mean, again, and authorities, buses are typically run by authorities, and
Right.
authorities are different than towns, so, you know, every
Yeah.
scenario is a little different.
So Jim, what would be the estimate of creating a 501c3 at this time, 5,000?
Again, I'm not going to comment.
Right, so it's not going to be the town doing it, so.
No, I know, it's just a
Whatever
rough
the-
estimate.
Am I gonna have to go to legalzoom.com and do
Need
this?
to do it. That's the answer.
All right, so I think we should
Well,
probably,
it's not that, typically not that expensive.
No, it's usually 3 to 5.
I understand why we need to have this distance on this, and, okay, I think we got our answer, and we'll just have to discuss this offline.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to think outside the box here in order to do the right thing.
Well, that's what trying to do.
Right. Of course,
Okay.
within all legal parameters.
But again, perfect example is Central Park. There's the Central Park Conservancy.
Conservancy, right.
So we could have the Robinson Lane Conservancy.
Right, I mean, so that's exactly, you know, but again, that's specific, you can do something, you know, more broader based, but, I mean, the Central Park Conservancy is, you know, a prime example, and they have, you know, gala balls, and they have, you know, very large fundraisers, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and so, let's see, make sure I got all of the, I think we have all the discussion items that have been covered. So I have a motion to close the
I'll
discussion.
move it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passed. Okay, we'll move into the resolution portion of the agenda. First item is Resolution 2019-57. This is a resolution establishing a charter for Town of Wappinger Arts and Cultural Development Advisory, Committee, and this, as you've read in the proposed, charter, and the resolution itself is to build upon our already rich culture that exists here, and I think to try to attract residents that are moving out of the city. It would help us where we have very minimal tourism at this point of time, and so the reasons will really be to enhance the service to the community, increase, I think, civic pride and the quality of our life. So that's the idea behind this that I have in mind in proposing.
And I think it's a really good proposal. I think there's a lot of good information in here. I think it would be wise for us as a board to talk, if we could add some things to it that are here right now and maybe change some things and answer some questions.
Yeah. Well,
I think that's a good thing for a discussion, because I do think it's important.
Right.
We have a lot of people moving into the area that bring a lot of qualities and attributes that would be beneficial to everybody. So I
No,
would
that's
hope-
right. That's the reason for it on the
Right.
agenda, to
Right.
talk about it now. This is not a subject appropriate for executive session, I
No.
believe. It's something that we should discuss up here.
And I think when the board gets around to it, I think one of the things that the board may want to look at is composition and term of the board, of this advisory committee. So just, kind of a sense of.
Well, the composition is 7 to 20 members, correct?
Right.
Talking about maybe the duration as well.
Right.
And we had a 3-year term in here, which then you don't have to have the 7 and 20 all at once, and then there would be the supervisor and what I had proposed, supervisor and one other member of the town board.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's appropriate. The other question is,
How are they appointed?
Well, they be by the town board.
Okay. I just, I
I think,
I think
initially.
20 is a large.
Well, I think initially, my idea is that there are a lot of different artists
Sure.
here and a lot of different culture in our town, but also the idea that if we were to start off, you don't want everybody all appointed with a 3-year term at the beginning.
Sure.
So my thought is that then you stagger it.
Right.
And you
No,
choose some
absolutely.
this year, or what have you, that would be there so that you stagger the term.
No, staggered terms make a lot of sense for continuity. As the town board knows, unfortunately, the town law prohibits us from staggering our terms, which makes things difficult, but I wholeheartedly believe in staggered terms.
Well, it's the preference of the board to discuss this now or to have further discussion in the next board meeting.
I would rather do it on the next board meeting.
Okay.
I would, but I have some things I'll talk to us
Okay.
about this. I can send questions too, or
I
feedback to everybody too.
Well, we could trade, some ideas.
Right.
I would prefer, though, that we don't delay this
No.
beyond the next board meeting.
Just put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
So we'll take, motion to table,
Second.
okay,
I
all in
guess is it-
favor?
Aye.
Okay.
It's already tabled, but.
It's already tabled.
What I think
Okay.
should happen,
With the
Supervisor,
expectation of us
Yeah.
voting on it the next meeting.
stipulation, put it right on the date for the meeting so that we have it as the first thing to go again.
Okay, so that would be at the March 11th meeting.
All right.
Okay.
We'll be prepared to
Okay.
adopt.
Okay, very good, thank you. The next item is Resolution 2019-59, resolution establishing a mission statement for the Department of Parks, Facilities, and Programs, which is really the new the department that is an expansion of the Recreation Department. And so I had prepared a draft mission statement last time, and that's what's here before you right now. Anybody have any comments or?
The only thing I would like to see is the total number of acres of all the parks. You know what I'm saying? Because you specify Carnwath
Sure.
Farms, but it would be interesting in the mission, I think, to include all full acreage, the total number of acres of
That
parks.
we can do, and in fact, the
Do
other.
we know that?
Well, you know, we
It's
can
a
give an
fluid.
estimate.
We have that question?
It's a fluid number.
Estimated, but also, so the board knows, I've asked Mr. Gray, and he's in final process of preparing, also thanks to Joey Cavaccini as well, a map that shows all of the parks. Actually, it's the official 13 parks as well as, about another 14 that include conservation easement and so forth. So we will have that map, you know, pretty soon, right? All color-coded. So it will be the... Okay, so then put that down, and then we can have it for the next board meeting.
Yeah, so if I can just move to table this until the next meeting, so that we can have some additional input, and, you know, I like mission statements, but I think yours kind of speaks more to a vision also.
Yes.
Perhaps breaking it into two.
That's fine.
You know, the mission statement being, you know, like the first paragraph, and then the vision really looking from our town board's perspective of what the vision is moving forward. Having identified the 1,000 acres that Joey seems to believe we have. That's what he
He
said.
told me 1,200.
Okay.
1,000 acres. So that's something that I think we should know,
Yeah.
you know?
And we had some discussion regarding this in the past regarding, you know, with respect to recreation fees and things of that nature. You know, the Controller's Office recommends that, you know, you do capital planning, and one of the things is, you know, with respect to the utilization of the parks, you know, how you utilize them. I mean,
Right.
one of the things, if you look up in the city of Poughkeepsie, they were actually shedding parks because they have a lot of parkland that they just can't maintain.
Nobody uses.
So, and I think that's part of the idea behind the mission and vision, and I agree with Councilman Beal about that. So I can, you know, work on, you know, revising that, but then also get the additional input from the rest
Right.
of the council members and, you know, council, you know, engineer, you know, historian is welcome to present, and same with the recreation director as well.
Sure.
Okay, so,
I'll move to table to the next meeting and make sure it's on the agenda for the next meeting.
Second.
okay, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Motion passed. Mr. Town Clerk, I'm sure you already have it on there, right? For next meeting. Okay. The next item is Resolution 2019-63, proclamation recognizing March 14th as Math Recognition Day, or kind of also referred to as Pi Day. Irvin Miller, you know, had requested that we do this. He also has a number of students that have excelled in math, you know, that are going to be recognized as a result of it. I believe that the town board last did that in 2016. So we have the form of the resolution here, which is really the same as the previous measure.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a great thing, anything we can do to highlight achievements in mathematics or any other type of academic achievement, I think is a great thing. Obviously, we're using the day March 14th because 3.14 is the approximation of pi.
I really
Exact
thought-
number.
I thought you were going to give the whole thing.
You can go into infinity with that, but it's approximation, but that is why they're choosing March 14th.
Well, I didn't ask. I knew he'd automatically
I knew it was
get
going to
it.
I
come
really
out.
thought,
Yeah, so did
I thought you'd taken at least 4 more digits.
159, we can keep going. But anyway, we're going to stop there.
59265. All right.
Don't encourage
But
it
anyway,
anymore.
we'll
Really?
leave it
Do
alone.
we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. The next item is Resolution 2019-64. It's a resolution appointing Board of Assessment Review member. This is Lisa Molitaris, but I don't see our tax assessor here.
I was going to say, was she previously on the board?
I
Do we
don't know.
have anything?
Yeah,
I
believe
don't-
so.
I think she was. I think he was asking, although it's
Yeah, can we find that out?
referenced in the,
Yeah, I mean, if she was, I'd have no issue with that, if she previously served. If-
but some of the board members haven't met her before.
Yeah, why don't we
either.
table this to the next meeting?
Okay.
If
I
you-
mean, the
Yeah,
other thing
please.
too is, which, this is one of the weird, their terms expire end of September.
October
Right, the
1st.
term is October 1st, so, and invariably, nobody ever appoints a new member on October 1st, because everybody forgets.
But we have to do it sooner than later.
Right,
of the
because
training
grievance
process.
day,
Yeah.
grievance day is in May, and they have to take courses.
So we need to move on this to the next meeting.
Yeah, next meeting.
So I'll second the table.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays or abstentions, motion passed. And then I'll ask Christian to.
The other thing is make sure that there's no other vacancies, so.
Okay.
Well, part of that resolution is to direct Cheryl Wallace to undergo the necessary
Yeah,
training as
well,
well.
you have a changed one up here on the desk. They, Loretta caught it, so.
Oh, it's a typo.
Yeah, it's a typo. It was
Okay.
obviously borrowed from the last one, so we have a
Oh,
revised.
so Cheryl Wallace already got the
Yeah,
training?
she's already in there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, very good, thank you.
Okay, so, did we moved the table, so that's done for the next meeting. Next resolution is 2019-65, a resolution authorizing a refund of escrow for Osborne Square Bank Plaza. I noticed in the resolution that they have the incorrect number, I just caught it. There's a first reference to $2,000, and then it's in parentheses, 351.55 cents. The correct amount is $351.55. So, the resolution as we have needs to be amended in the 351.51 cents.
All right, I'll move.
Okay.
So there's two escrows that's posted.
Yes, that's correct. It'll
One
be
in
the
the
second
amount of 2,000.
Yeah, but this one they took, I guess
Okay.
probably the resolution and
Yep.
was a hybrid and it's correct. So we have motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion is passed as amended.
Just on that point, though, this is the plaza that's going to be the home of the first marijuana dispensary in Dutchess County, correct?
Is it? I don't know.
Well, exactly my point, though. I think that the town board probably should have been briefed on this ahead of time before reading it in the Poughkeepsie Journal. Not that I have an objection to medical marijuana, but my point is, I think there's some residents that may have questions about the zoning and how it fits into the zoning, and I have questions about it.
Sure.
So if we can have the zoning administrator come
Okay.
to the next meeting just to give us a briefing.
Okay.
I'm not against this, but I think we need to be in the know on how this is going to work and how it fits into the zoning. And it's already got pretty big headlines, and I was caught off guard.
Okay. Very good. Now I'll make that, a request to come on in. Okay? Thank you. Okay, the next item is Resolution 2019-66. This is a resolution authorizing appropriation of highway fund balance to increase the 2018 Highway Department salt budget. The request is for 1,000 tons, which is at 75,000. Mr. Highway Superintendent, would you like to make any comments?
That would be the increase in 2019, just making a change on that.
Oh, yes. See that.
Two things. We're within I was remiss when I asked for some of the salt, we're within our budget guidelines. But with the prolonged ice and the cold and the flash constant freeze-ups, I've asked for another 1,000 tons to be available. I thank the board for that. I took in approximately 700 tons to date of the appropriation. We have approximately 300 tons to take in. So that 1,000 I asked for, I wanted to have on reserve. It's got to take me into next year. We don't know what's going to happen. We have snow constant. The big prolonged icing is the problem, not the snow, the prolonged icing. It goes for hours and hours. It's sleet, ice, wet rain. It keeps changing. And you got to be prepared for that. So that's why I asked for it. A lot of people don't realize it goes shade to sun, substrate to gravel. Mile to mile, it could be any from a different elevation. So it's not all the same. Applications are not all the same as well. So I do thank the board for their diligence, and we're within our, like I said, within our budget, but we want to have another 1,000 available. Some of the things we're starting to find out is that upstate, a lot of the towns, I mean, actually Cornell in a class we took in the city, he said the vortex and the constant freeze up, flash freeze, the drop in temperature, the quick melting, it comes back up. You got to put salt on it. Salt sometimes doesn't work under 15 degrees. You mix it with gravel. So we're doing the best we can. Just from an accident standpoint, there were 7 accidents last year on county roads, 3 on county roads, 1 on our road. So, I'd rather err on the side of safety. Obviously, it's not the ice and the snow that cause the accidents. It's the people's inability to adjust to the conditions that are out there. Insurance companies tell you that every day. But, that's where we're at.
So, Mr.
Thank
Superintendent,
you.
what's the total amount of salt in your inventory right now, approximately?
What's in the barn exactly?
Yeah, in the barn.
I can't tell you. I can tell you, I took in, like I said, 700 tons. I got about another 300 to put in there. I would say we're probably at 1,500.
So you believe with this and then your additional
Should hold us.
spend, will get you through the end of the year barring some major unforeseen.
Exactly.
stuff.
But the thing is, again, I'd rather have a foot, I mean, I want to say there's a foot or 2 of snow than this constant rain, this constant sleet. I get these blurbs from Mr. Beal constantly, watch out, 6 inches, 4 inches, and it gets to be 2 inches. So I'm glad that there have been less than more, but the flash freezing is killing us. And again, I've got citations out there. And again, it's a misnomer. I can't issue citations, we found out. I've got Brothers Road. We've got some people that we're dealing with the building department. We've got situations where people are discharging water onto the roads. It's freezing. There's several areas that we constantly chop ice up on it. And, and we have people out there that have the gypsy plow guys push the snow right across the road. Not supposed to do that. You've got to go out and do it again. If you hit that spot, you're going to go. Often people see the roads black. It doesn't mean that you can drive. That's why they call it black ice. But
On the plowing of driveways, I noticed since we made some public announcements, also posted that the last couple storms it's been better.
it has been better. I did put a resolution. I did put a piece together that I wanted to send down with the tax bills. People are under this misnomer that they can just throw snow in the road, that they can leave their garbage cans out and the garbage can gets hit. No, you can't. And I've got people parking their cars around. And I will say one thing. Sergeant Bicor is issuing tickets now.
Right.
And the thing is, and in all fairness, with this advisory, it's supposed to be off the road. I mean, people leave their cars there, they plow around them, and then you're going to come back and you got a chunk of ice there, and you got to come back at it again. That's time and money. That's resource we got to put back down again. But I do want to thank the board for their diligence and acting quickly on that. I'd rather be safe than sorry. It's a lot less to put salt down and pay for a injury. Thank you.
My only question is, it's February and we're asking for more money already for salt, so
That's correct. It's been wet and a lot colder, and it's been proven. As a matter of fact, Cornell spoke with Jim, and they're the people who make that decision. They said, look, it's going to get,
Right, but this is not a good precedent to be setting in the first quarter, because we still have to get through the end of the year here.
Right, but I can't control the weather either, Bill.
Well, I understand that, but I've been here for a little while, and
So have I.
you've sat next to me and questioned the same thing I'm questioning. So here we are in February, requesting $75,000 more in
Bill, I'm
salt.
going to request it. If someone gets in an accident, and the thing about it, we were told in class the other night with the attorneys there, it's all about public safety and making sure people can do it.
I understand
Well,
that, but
that's
how
what
many
I'm-
tons of salt do we use a year in this
Approximately
town?
about 5,000 tons.
5,000 tons, okay. So
That's
this,
what it was when I came in office in 14 and 15, and that board constantly kept cutting it back until this new administration came back and gave it back to me, the same that Mr. Foster had.
right, so with 5,000 ton of salt for the year, okay, we would have budgeted appropriately for 5,000 tons in the 2019 fiscal year budget, correct?
Correct.
So now we need an additional 1,000 tons.
I'm saying I have it on reserve if I need it, because I can't predict the weather, and we were told today, there's another storm Wednesday, Saturday, and again, it's prolonged ice, Bill, and I have to keep putting it out.
So how much do we have from the original 5,000 tons?
That's why I was asking, trying to get to.
I can't tell you to the bucket. I can tell you, I don't measure it every day. I just told you I probably have 1,000, 1,500 tons in there, I would think, mixed with gravel.
With 3 still coming in, 300?
I have 300 tons coming in, yes. And what I'm saying is, we've got storms going out. Now, every morning, almost every morning, trucks go out for black ice.
Right.
They go out. I hear about people complaining that the plows don't get close enough to the mailbox. Can you put it down, scrape it? Okay. So we try to accommodate. There's Sylvia, there's always a runoff up there.
But I guess my concern
Brothers
is...
Road, I got a citation right now that we're trying to solve that. Now, Bill, Bob, the attorney and I both talked about these driveways and where they're designed and the discharge onto the roads with them. Jim, you want to talk a little bit about that?
But let me just ask you this, though. If we've used 3,500 tons already, that's a concern.
Bill, it's been really wet and really icy, Bill, and that's my decision to make that, and I did make it, and I deal on the side of safety. There were 7 accidents on the county roads last year, 1 on my road, and 3 on the DOT road.
I think we really need an analysis of this from the controller, because to arbitrarily be spending another $75,000 on salt in February, we're not even in March yet.
We're March next week, Bill.
I understand that, but we're still in the first quarter. This is 3,500 tons in 1 quarter, or in 2 months, is a red flag.
I think November in itself, and I'm going to go on record right here.
Okay.
I had to plow the county roads and the state roads to get out because they didn't get out, and I had to salt them. And the other thing we do is we salt the fire departments, of which we're not supposed to. We're supposed to bill for that. And I put material down on that too as a courtesy. We're supposed to send bills out on that.
Okay.
The fact is we are trying to, all it is about safety.
Councilman Veal, on the 21st, Frederick had responded that of the 2019 appropriations in the salt line, there's $85,654.50 remaining as of
So I have this money
the
there.
21st.
So why don't we use the money that exists within that appropriated line
Right.
prior to using unappropriated fund balance? Because if that's the case, then I have no objection.
Phil, that's what I said earlier. We have the funds to be brought in. All I'm saying is I want, in case there was an emergency and it wasn't a board, that I have another $1,000 should I need it. That's all I asked for.
So you're already...
I'm in my appropriation. I'm
You're
fine.
asking for what we've already appropriated. You're within your budget.
Absolutely. I don't need to ask you for that because I already have that.
Right,
What I'm
but then-
asking for, should I be able to have to go out of that for an emergency? That's all I asked.
Well, no. The resolution is moot then, if that's what you're asking. There doesn't need to be a resolution if he's using money from his own appropriated fund.
Well, that's a good point.
So...
Right? You're already authorized to do it, right? If you have it within your
I have
budget.
the money to do it. What I asked for is we see storms coming in, and I wanted to make sure that should I need it, I'd have to wait for a board meeting to call down for it. That's all. As an emergency.
So I had asked Frederick, to give me some numbers, and I'll just read it from the 2014 number. So in 2014, 5,214.8 tons were ordered. In 2015, 7,477.93 tons were ordered. Then during the years of some challenge on funding, 2016, only 3,531 tons, 2017, 3,647 tons.
That's right.
In 2018, with this board, we had authorized and was delivered 4,955 tons. And then in 2019, so far it was authorized was 4,498 tons.
I'm still waiting for
based on
the-
what
right.
Frederick provided.
I'm still within my budget, that's correct.
Okay, so in the last, couple of years, the highway superintendent has kept it at $75 a ton. The previous, it was at 89.96 and 63.77, so it comes out still to approximately $75 a ton.
And I will say in 15, it was $77 a ton when we were working with the New York State. I'm no longer working with New York State. We're working through.
But anyway, those,
Working-
are the
working through
numbers that
Dutchess
I got
County.
from Frederick.
But also, I want to add to that, Supervisor, I am within my appropriation, but the fact is, the weather is significantly different than those years. And it's been proven, and Cornell University backed that up.
So I think the question that's been raised is, what, it was my understanding you were asking for an additional 1,000 tons beyond the 4,498.
To have available in case we
have
need it.
available. So you wanted to place the orders, or did place
Well, we
the
did
orders.
place the orders for our material that we have coming, but I'm saying, I'd like to have it, because again, we're going to go into November of next, the main material that we get for that 1,000 tons is going to have to carry me into November next year. That's all I'm saying.
I think as the supervisor pointed out, you did save significant on the cost compared to the state.
Yes.
So we do thank you for that.
You know,
I want to thank all the highway superintendents, because we had a meeting ourselves. We do have a professional organization of us that we're able to get the county to buy, and we all have certain yields that we're asking for. So I do thank the board for being there for the extra 1,000, should we need it. Hopefully, we won't need it, and hopefully the weather will stay constant, but the weatherman hasn't been right, and the reports given to me are never right.
And it's my understanding that in this immediate past storm, that the mixture was like 60-40, 60 salt, 40 sand.
We try to do 50.
So you're not doing all?
Oh, no. There's never been all salt. Absolutely not. And the other thing is, last year, just for the record, the school district had to come in and take salt from us as well. That was last year.
But you got that back.
And we got that back. That's correct.
I guess my thought is that prior to authorizing any expense out of unappropriated fund balance, we should deplete the budgeted amount of money in the appropriated line. That's just my thought.
Well, I'm just saying, for an emergency, and I can't get to your meeting and I need it, I want to have it available. That's all.
That's prudent.
I just don't know if that's proper. If you have the money already in your budget, I'm not so sure that it makes sense from an accounting standpoint to authorize
But I
money.
think what the highway superintendent is doing is, in his judgment, because of the weather conditions up through now, and is that he's, in order to get through the end of the year, his judgment, his recommendation to us is he needs another 1,000 to play it safe, and no
So
more
that's all
than
I
that.
ask. That's all I ask. I'm going on the side of safety, and as they told us in the meeting, I'm responsible for public safety on the roads. That's my obligation.
So you're at 4498 is what was purchased so far.
Right, I have another 300 tons coming in, hopefully, tomorrow, Bill, which will fill out my order.
And then you still have salt in the shed, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, I have no objection further.
Thanks. One of the other questions I have, and I'm going to throw it out there, I know I've talked about it, I'm going to try to beat a dead horse, but the county and the state have a brine system. The brine goes down, it keeps the cold pack of the snow building up. We don't have that ability.
I think we should save that
That's something for the
for,
springtime, yeah, I know.
you know, further discussion or workshop. You know, I understand those brine systems are very expensive, and it's questioned
They are.
as to their effectiveness, you know, and so I would say let's just deal with this motion and get that. And then,
I just want to put out there, they say that we save 25 to 30% salt, but then again, you got to figure out.
whether or
how
not
much
we
to
do,
take.
I don't know.
All right.
The only stipulation I would say is, and I'm going to support this, is just to keep things clean here, spend the money that's in your budget first
Absolutely.
before you spend this money.
Bill, I'm not touching that money, unless you, I'll let you
I
know.
don't think you are, but just so that we're not inadvertently
I'll
spending.
make sure Frederick keeps.
You know what I'm saying, right?
No, I
No,
understand.
for budgetary reasons, you want to
Yeah.
spend money that's in the
But at
budget
least
before you go.
he
to
has the
the-
All I'm
ability to
spending
get
is
that.
what I have there, but I want to have it in case of an emergency. That's all.
Okay,
I-
so,
I guess the other question, the one question I have is, if you order, so if you contract for 1,000, you got to take 1,000. Because, I mean, you can save it for
That's exactly right. What I could say to them is, look, you know, if I'm going to take 1,000, but just give me 500, I still have that 500. It's my reserve. Everyone's burning it up. Everyone's grabbing it. I want to be able to have it. That's what I'm saying.
do we have to have it on site, though?
Well, I mean, typically you have to deliver it, you know, it'll have to be delivered by a certain period of time. I'll look at the contract with respect to that.
Right, so if we don't have room for it, is that what you're saying?
Right.
Right.
Because
So-
usually what'll happen under those
right.
contracts is that if you don't have room for it, you can keep the contracted amount, but you got to pay an extra fee.
Right, so-
For them to store it off-site.
All right, what I would say is this, again, so you're going to use your budget to buy what you need until you have no funds. Then we're going to pre-authorize you to purchase this, assuming that we have the ability to put it in our shed.
That's correct.
Okay.
We'll have the ability, believe me.
Okay. All right, so I have no further.
Thank you.
Okay,
Transferring the funds, yes.
We're going to do
Transfer the funds.
we're going to do it in a motion here in a second, right?
So
Right.
the money's all-
yeah, and I just want to make sure one amendment to the resolution heading is 2019 rather than 2018. Okay, so with that, we have it properly.
Money will be transferred and combined.
So correct, I'll make the motion that we authorize this resolution, which is going to transfer $75,000 from DB 0915, which is unappropriated fund balance within the DB fund, into DB 5142.4, which is the snow removal contractual expense line.
That's in the resolution.
Okay,
Yeah,
correct,
that's right.
but the stipulation is that this highway superintendent, he was going to do this anyway, is going to spend the money that's in his budget already prior to utilizing the additionally authorized funding.
Appropriated funds will be spent first.
Right.
How would you do that if you
God bless you.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Pool of money, so how does he know?
Well, the
it's
issue
been spent?
ultimately.
It's not segregated,
Ultimately,
I hear what
the issue
you're
is
saying.
if the money is not expended by the end of the budgetary year, it reverts to fund balance anyway.
Right.
Right, I know what you're saying, but the reason why I'm saying this is just from a practical standpoint.
What you're doing is you're raising the authorized spending.
Just in
limit.
case.
That's all.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
second that.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes.
Supervisor, one thing I want to add to that, so people realize that, in the 5142.4, okay, in that saw, the blades and the plows come out of that money too.
Understood.
Okay, I didn't know that.
A lot of people don't know that, those blades get
They're
burned
what,
up.
$900 a shot, right? Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, they burn up, and that money's coming out of that same pot too.
Thank you for pointing
Okay,
that out.
thank you.
God bless you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Next resolution, 2019-67, resolution awarding contract for repair to emergency services building sanitary sewer pipe. Steve, why don't you just introduce this, the need to repair, what you discovered, and then Bob can talk about the proposal.
Okay, I think we've been through this, but we discovered that the elevations weren't correct. Apparently, when the system was initially installed, either that through settling, and that's what was causing the frequent backups over there. So the solution was to put a new tank in at the proper elevation to get the correct pitch on the pipe. It's actually been done at this point and needs to be finished off. But
Is that what the machinery is over there right now? All right, I'll move this. It's only $4,850.
I'll
Okay,
second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion passed. Thank you.
Thanks for troubleshooting that.
Yeah, thanks. Next resolution, 2019-68, resolution requesting New York State Department of Transportation authorize reduction of speed limit on Middle Bush Road in the area of Wappinger Junior High. This has originated from a number of accidents, including a very serious one with Ralph Holt. We had worked with the highway superintendent, myself, with the county. They went ahead and were able to put in two blinking lights to start bringing attention to it upon my request for consideration of lowering the speed limit. It's my understanding, and the highway superintendent could confirm, that, we need to have a formal resolution, since there is a school zone in our, public, building, a lot of people, especially seniors going in and out. The county seems to be willing to do this. If the board would approve it, we would just have to set whether it's a 15-mile or a 20-mile, what we would determine to do. I think there was a recommendation of the county to say 15 miles. So that's the background on this particular resolution. It's more for improving, enhancing the safety
Right.
in respect to the junior high and town hall.
I'll move it.
Second.
What do you need to
What's the
discuss?
mileage?
We
So,
said 15, didn't we?
15.
I did say 15.
You
but-
said 15.
what's the current speed limit on Middle Bush Road?
35 or 30. 35, right in front of the town hall.
35, sir.
I think
And
it's
30 at the corner.
Well, first of all, let me say that the signs, I think, are very effective. Great job on grabbing taking the initiative to do that. I think it's unlikely they're going to approve 15 miles per hour. This is a major thoroughfare.
Well, I guess what it comes down to, ultimately, it's their decision. So we can make the recommendation, but it's just an advisory type of situation. So they're going to come back to us and tell us what that speed limit will be.
Or they may just do nothing.
Or they may do nothing, and
Now,
it's
if
happened
you-
before.
Yeah, Bill, if
376
you
is a
think
perfect
like 20
example.
miles, or, what's the school zone normally?
15.
15.
Well, it actually depends on.
It's not that. That's not what it is by
It's
Evans.
not, it can't be,
Hyde Park is 20.
it can't be lower than 15.
15, okay.
And
Most
the-
school districts are
Right.
15.
Most of
And
them
this,
are.
and the regular speed limit can't be less than 25. So if you go below 25, it needs to be designated as a school zone. And
Right.
my understanding in the DOT regs, which is not necessarily clear, I think you may need, and this is one of the things you can coordinate, you may need to get a similar resolution from the Wappinger Central School District.
I know one of the things they look to whether or not there were accidents. Certainly, that's one thing we have empirical evidence
Oh,
of.
without a doubt, yeah.
You know,
exactly.
the only thing is that it's unclear to me, based on this, the information we were sent down from county DPW, said they needed a resolution from this board. I
Right.
think they
I think
may
this
also
is
need,
important to do.
because it's a school
Did you
zone.
say no?
I'm sure that's not going to be a problem.
No,
No,
because
I'm
I've been in
just saying-
communication
Right.
with the
But I'm just saying it
superintendent.
should all go up as one package,
Well,
because
in their recommended steps, they don't say that.
that's correct, because they don't mention that this is a school zone. But and again, the way this resolution was drafted,
Well, why don't-
to go below 25 miles an hour.
Why don't we do-
Is a
let's-
fixed limit.
You know,
so.
let's us pass a
Yeah,
resolution.
certainly, I'm just saying that.
Then I can send it
Correct.
over to the school superintendent's office to have them get the school board to
Right.
consider a
Exactly.
companion resolution, if that makes sense.
That's fine.
I
Because
agree.
this is also going to require a resolution from the county legislature.
Well, you know, already Francina Barrow is ready
Right.
to propose that. if
I just
need-
think, I don't see 15 miles per hour being
Then what,
feasible.
20 miles?
I mean, 25 might be more realistic.
Could always go up.
Well, the thing about it, Councilman Beal, is regardless of whether we say 15 or 25, they're going to set the limit anyway.
Exactly.
What we tell them is going to be inconsequential to them.
Well, if we say 15, they could just throw their hands up and say, forget it. If we say 25, they may.
Well, listen, my
Consider it.
experience with them is they basically take our suggestion under advisement at best, and they do what they think is best,
Well, I
regardless
mean-
of what we ask them.
There's also a time limit
Well,
potential too.
so-
That's on Sheaf Road, that is specific designated time.
Yeah, but we're looking at it also because of the town hall, you know, and coming in
Yeah.
for meetings or what have you with seniors and other people. that-
Well, I think
Let's
Councilman,
put a light in.
well, that's a good point, but I
I
think we
didn't
got to
hear,
start
what did he
someplace.
say?
So let's do it at 20 and see what they say.
Well, I'm fine with whatever it is. Basically,
go with
it's an
20.
arbitrary number.
It just-
You can
I
flip
mean-
a coin. It's not going to make a difference. The state's going to make
They're
the
going to
decision.
make their decision no matter what.
But procedurally, there's two issues. My reading of the statute is that the minimum, I believe, that the speed limit could be set as 25
Okay.
on any road, on a general road. You can go below 25 if you create a school district, but the school district speed limit is only for the hours, school hours.
Okay.
Right.
So,
Which coincide
Which
with our
makes-
hours.
right,
Exactly,
for the most
yeah.
part. So, and that would be I just,
Yeah.
I'll certainly
So it's
change.
not-
I'll certainly amend it to 20 miles an hour if you
Yeah.
think that's better. That's fine.
Let's try with 20. I'll see what I can do. And
No problem.
If,
So I'll amend my motion to make it 20 miles
Second.
an hour.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion passed. You know,
Supervisor,
Mr.
one of the
McKee.
things I thought we discussed, but maybe I'm remiss, is that when we're at the meeting with the county, yeah, the blinking lights are there, but if you go over to the garage over there, the walking trail, I think it's Lake Walton Road, they actually have the lights in the road, on the walking path. And I think that
Yeah.
would be something that would be good from our road, our driveway to across the street, where that would be lit up, where they have lights blinking on that, because you've got buses, you've got people walking across. I think if we could do
Well, I
that.
understand, but I'm trying to take it one step at a time and see what we can get. We got the blinking lights.
Took us long, but we got
Took
it.
us a while, but we got them, and let's see if we can get the speed limit, and then we can take the next step.
Yeah.
This is what I say.
No, I agree,
Okay.
yeah, and I think it's important.
Okay, thank you, but thanks for the comments. I agree with you. We had
Thank you
discussed
very
it.
much.
Resolution 2019-69, this is a resolution authorizing change order number 1, and hopefully last, for Tall Trees Water System Abandonment Contract number 17020. Part of this is where a number of the residents in Tall Trees had complained to me that when we abandoned, took down the tank and everything, we left the path open going up to the hill. And there were, ATVs, bikes and other things going up there. So they had requested if we could put in a fence across, the path and with a lock on it. So that's what part of this was.
There was a chain there for a long time, but
Yeah.
that went away.
That went away, so we do have a gate, and I've watched it, and during the snows, it's been effective. All I see are deer footprints going up there. Ed Turkey. Bob, you talk about the other other couple elements.
As you know, or may not know, the piping in Falls uses transite pipe. We can't locate it, it can't be detected except by digging it up.
Right.
So there were a number of additional valves that needed to be installed based on who dug it up.
Excuse me.
There were some improvements that had to be made to the road up to the old tank. The water was constantly washing out.
Right,
into the
had to
road.
have a,
So we had to put a swale, basically,
Yep.
come downhill and then back up to,
Right.
to the road there and keep the water off the town road that was, as we talked before, about icing.
Yeah.
and it was very effective, I've observed that.
Yeah, the other issue that led to this increase in cost was the tanks, when they were exposed, were larger than what the plans had called for. So there was additional work that someone had to do to get them out. But this change order will allow us to close the contract. We've negotiated this with the contractor. That's the end.
Is this a water district expense, or what is this?
This is a UWWD.
Yeah, okay, so I'll move it.
Right. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. And the next item, the resolution 2019-70, is a resolution authorizing refund of escrow. This is the $2,000, escrow amount. Now, this was also for the same, development, but it was relating to the installation of dumpster enclosures, which has been completed.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes. The next item is Resolution 2019-71. This is the resolution authorizing the contract for video services for 2019. Mr. Minor is here. It's basically $35,000 for 10 months. We decided we go through the end of the year. It covers, among other things, 6 meetings per month. That's R2, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Planning Board. And then Mr. Minor has attached a long list of other things that would be included in it. I had tried, sampled, kind of tested his services for the Chinese art exhibit, and he did a very good job with respect to that art exhibit, and also putting it to music, and was very reasonable. I was outside of this. It was $400, so covered it within the supervisor's amount. So it's my recommendation that we, try this and see how good he works. Again, Nick D'Alessandro and some others, but particularly Nicky was very highly recommending Mr. Minor's services. Mr. Han has looked at it, and we've gone through, really any legal issues.
Yeah, the only
we can talk about that.
the only thing I would recommend would be that it would be paid on a monthly basis, which was not specified in the contract itself. And then, there's, I believe it was 6 programs a month.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. So that's basically the 2 ZBA, Planning Board, and Town Board meetings.
Oh, and then there was a discussion about additional programming on top.
Yeah, so he has additional programming, that's that long list.
Right, so
Right.
I guess the
Things that you
question
can give
was,
us.
if you would,
Right.
any additional programming beyond, I believe it was 2 per week.
Mr. Minor, you could talk to Michael.
It was the 6 meetings per month.
Oh, why don't you come up?
Yeah, come on up.
I think this is the last time I have to go on camera. So it was 6 meetings, government meetings per month, plus 2 to 3 programs, whether it be on location or educational programs, and all the post-production, plus needs assessment, upgrading the equipment.
So it was 2 additional programs per month?
Per week.
Oh, per week, okay.
So that would be discussed and
Right.
decided on.
So we would decide what
So-
the program is.
So the only question was if there was nothing, and if there was anything beyond that, then it would be on a set fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
But, he's, I think, been, East Fishkill very flexible, and I think we can work with him on what that would be.
Yeah.
So we're basically dealing with $3,500 a month, is that correct?
Yes,
Based on the prorated amount, and you'd be able to start in the month of March
Correct.
which is only a few days away, believe it or
Right.
not.
Next week, we could start with that.
We have the
Yeah.
parade on Saturday.
Well, that might be, I mean, if it's possible, I mean, you know, the Dutchess County St. Patrick's Parade is this Saturday. I mean, that's kind of short notice, but that's in the month of March. It might be something good to have at least some, you know, B-roll for to play, right?
Not March 11th, it's our next meeting,
Yeah.
so.
Right, so $3,500 a month. I mean, I think that if we look at this from, you know, a 10-month trial period, right?
That's the idea.
I was going to originally offer a motion for 6 months, but I don't think we're going to gain anything by
No, I
cutting
don't
off the
think
last
so,
4. But just, sir, so you understand, this was previously not budgeted, so we're kind of taking a chance here by moving a resolution to fund this through unassigned fund balance, which, you know, we would need to see a return on investment, obviously.
Right.
I think we will. But of course, there are individuals that are going to need to be convinced that we need to continue this in 2020. So certainly encourage you to give us your best work for the remaining months of 2019 if we do approve this. Now, I know that you manage other municipalities, so for our town board meeting nights, would it be you here personally?
It would be flexible, you know, it would be me or one of my fill-ins.
Okay, so for the month of March, if we can at least make sure that we have you personally
Oh, yeah.
here, this way we can get things up and running, and, you know,
Yeah.
be able to provide any critique if we need to.
Is there a timetable on having monies accessible for new equipment, or is that?
No, that should be coming up pretty soon with the pending
Yeah, we
franchise
get
agreement.
the exhibit in, and then the contract will be done.
The problem is it's subject to
Their approval.
Public Service
Takes
Commission.
about 5 months to
Yeah.
get that approved.
So in the meantime, okay, that's a good point then. So in the
Yeah, we
meantime,
could
before
also-
we have the new equipment in-house, would you be able to utilize some equipment of your own for the purposes of
Oh, sure.
giving us
What
better
you have
quality?
here is operational, but
Okay. Okay,
as soon as possible.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we need to take it to the, finally to the 21st
And
century.
the other thing with respect to the equipment purchases, and it's obviously something that the board can consider, I would imagine that the funding will come in sometime in 2019. So, you know, as far as the equipment purchase, I don't know if that was budgeted, if in the 2019 budget.
Well, what is the anticipated franchise agreement funding going to be?
It's, was 50,000 or 45, maybe.
Yeah, it's
45, I think.
And that's just Cablevision?
That's
50,
cable.
yeah, that, I mean, my initial reaction, I think, was 50, because we increased it from the previous
Right,
amount.
Including the fact that it's been over 10 years.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, right, it was, so
50.
it's, I believe it's 50.
Okay.
So, I mean, to the extent that money's there, and it's, I don't know, the one question I don't know is whether or not it was appropriated in the 2019.
No, it wasn't appropriated, but I mean, if we're able to spend money and get reimbursed from the franchise agreement, that's a
Right.
conversation we can have. But then again, it's going to still take time to do that, so.
Well, I have state contract bid vendors who, you know, will eliminate the need for the procurement policy. And,
Okay.
you know, it can be done rather quickly if the money's there.
All right, so we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I think that's something you could theoretically do for the next meeting.
yeah, we could discuss it in March 11th meeting.
All right, so then I will move this resolution for the purposes of contracting video services with MJM Television and Video Productions.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion passed. Thank you, man. I look forward to working with you on this.
Thank you.
Okay, the resolution 2019-72 is a hiring of temporary municipal secretary. This is because Donna has had to go off for surgery, and so she had, worked with identifying, an individual, Mary Grace Di Clemente. Steve, had you interviewed her? I had interviewed her. I don't know.
Jessica and I both
Jessica did.
interviewed, and we're happy with it.
And she's, Donna was out officially as of today, so this was one I had sent you all an email alerting you to this urgent situation, and we're expecting Donna to be out, probably 2 months or maybe a little bit more than that, if all goes well in 2
And
months.
you'll let us know when she's back?
Yeah, and we'll let you know how it goes, too.
My only question would be a number of hours per week.
she is working 7:30 to 2:30.
So for purposes of civil service, a temporary appointment for less than 3 months can be anyone, provided they meet the minimum qualifications.
Right, but can it be 35 hours a week?
Could be
'Cause you're-
55, could be 60 hours a week.
Right, because you're looking at the total number of
'Cause-
hours for the year?
No, it's not that. Again, a temporary appointment is someone who's not appointed permanently. This person has no civil service status. They only may serve no longer than 3 months, and they are in the position for so long as the incumbent is out on leave of absence.
So now-
Once the person comes back, that person is out,
So now it's either or, it's either 90 days or when they come back, correct?
the lesser of.
The lesser of. So basically, we could do 90 days and fall within the guidelines. It can't be just
Right.
given
If
90
you go
days.
Not to
ahead-
exceed 90.
Yeah.
And it
So
cannot
let's,
be,
why
and
don't
it
we-
cannot be extended.
Right.
Yeah, let's just make sure we put in the,
Right.
yeah, not to exceed
Not to
90
exceed,
90
Not to
days.
exceed.
And the hours that she can work can be from anywhere from
Any
like
hour.
5 to 40 hours?
Yep,
Yes.
as long as it's 90 days or less.
Right.
So
And
not
if
to,
you go between 3 and 6 months, the person must appear on the civil service list, but they can appear anywhere, and longer than 6 months, they have to be reachable on the list.
okay, so I will amend it to say not to exceed 90 days.
So if this person works out, you'd have to bring them in as a civil service in a different.
Understood.
Right.
I second it.
But- So the temporary appointment cannot go beyond 90 days.
Well, I'll make that motion to approve Resolution 2019-72 with the amendment that is not to exceed 90 days.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion passed.
Typo on the resolution.
Yeah.
Secretary with 2 A's.
Yes, I saw it.
You're going to lose 5 points for that one.
You know,
Nobody's got
blame it
spell
on the
check on
legal
this
counsel who reviewed this
Yeah,
thing.
nobody's got spell check.
Anyway, okay, thank you. The next resolution is Resolution 2019-73, approving the correspondence.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passed. Are there any items for special consideration or new business?
Yes, I have one item from, I discussed it with the supervisor earlier. In order to properly mount the radar units in the new police cars, Sergeant Begor is requesting $252. We have it already budgeted within the police lines.
mounting?
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, it's $252 so that we can actually mount them instead of using Velcro. So I like to move that we authorize that expense.
I'll move it. Do we have the budget line?
We have money in the MDT line that we can use it for.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion passes.
And also, I'm investigating new AEDs, defibrillators, because the original
Yeah,
defibrillators are out of date.
They are.
We'll bring that up at a future board meeting for approval.
Yeah. Okay, very good. And we are going to be having an AED defibrillator, a training class here in Town Hall.
Very good.
Okay. The next item is executive session for a particular purpose of discussing parks, facilities, and programs, as well as, perhaps another item which we'll discuss during the meeting. Okay.
Make a motion to
Is
go
there a
into
motion?
executive
I'll second it.
session.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. Okay.
Got cold in here.
Yeah, it is called it. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was quick. Tell him no way. Tell him no. Tell him take a motion and come back and go to college. Here, that's the thing. You can't afford to get the pay grade. Yeah. You don't get the stripes until you go to class. Let's come back on. He's got a year.
Because I was going to do is start to redraft.
Per diem based on the same.
Can you go to the reserve? Okay, folks.
Oh, I'm cold.
He's
I'm sorry.
The heat turned on. It is. Okay,
You think?
ready for one more. I agree. Well, not as early as.
Well, we're
I
better
like
than
that,
we have been.
shooter training.
Don't you think?
Yeah, we're gonna have that.
Yeah, that was really good.
And we'll do more.
We have. We've done better than we have.
Where's Mr. K?
Yeah, MR.
Here he comes.
Well, no, I mean, for next year.
That door, I think, is still unlocked. Okay. We have a motion to come out of executive session. Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays, abstentions, motion passed. Mr. Haran, would you like to make a comment for the record?
Sure, no action was taken by the board in executive session.
Okay. Any other business?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays, abstentions, motion passed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, town. Yeah. So I will walk with him and
I'll go down to Boston.
thank you, Joe.
Oh, yeah. It's freezing down there.
Thanks to
The day I leave, it's
your deputy.
70.
He's going to miss
Doug
doing
Cooper. Thank you.
He's so sweet.
Who's that?
So,
Okay.
I looked at whatever rule of thumb I but it's all based on, and this is something we should probably do.
Based on tons, right?
No, it's based, but the issue is, it's based on like farm weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
Take care.
going forward,
Yeah, bye.
we should probably track the temperature and the weather conditions on the day of the event. Because if it's an icing event, it's anywhere from an additional 25 to 50%. If it's a snow event, you used to say you use 1,000
Right.
tons. If it's an ice event, you could be using 1,500 tons to run the same exact.
Thank you, Cooper.
Town of Poughkeepsie has 148 miles of road, that is 4,000 tons a year because he mixes it.
So there's those issues too, but they also have line trucks.
That's the other thing. So, but if we're using 5,000, we're right around 5,000. This gives them a little bit of reserve, but we got to have a better mechanism.
And then see the other thing too, as with respect to, I don't think he's going to use. I mean, as things stand now, unless it gets bad, he probably would not.